applicant, if the application includes provision of a footpath with the maintenance that goes with it, then we can be certain, I assume, that there would have to be a footpath provided. Is that true? If it's part of the application and that application is approved, am I right in thinking that includes a footpath?
I don't know for certain, but like you, I would assume that the application would include...
The application, it is in the title.
Sorry, hold on. No, when I let talk, you don't talk.
No.
I'm sorry, no, it's in deliberation with you, not the developer.
Please, I'm calling order on all of you, universally. Thank you very much. So, you know as much as I do by reading the documentation, it's a bit vague.
Then you would expect that that would be, if it's outlined as part of the application, it would be then for the parish council to keep an eye on the legal process of the Section 106 agreement is negotiated, and myself and Councillor Wright and Councillor Sharon Davis actually attended a meeting with the head of planning at Horsham District just a few weeks ago, and made it abundantly clear at that meeting, as did others, that we would expect to be part of any Section 106 negotiations for the future, and it would be upon us to make sure that we were keeping an eye on that before that legal agreement was signed.
And I can reiterate that Helen Lowe has said much the same, you know, if, depending on what our view is, if we have any even advisory, even if we, you know, decide to object to this, we can still suggest conditions, and we can still, you know, stipulate, you know, all sorts of things that we might want contributions towards. So that's for the future negotiations.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I'm John Blackwell, the District Councillor, so just to make my position clear this evening, I will be abstaining for voting on this motion because at some later date it will come to the planning committee in Horsham, of which I'm a member, of course, and I do not want to do anything tonight which will compromise it. That's not to mean, and I will not be speaking either in favour or against the motion. But I hope you will understand that if I want to maintain my integrity in the committee, I need to be very careful in what I say this evening. There are a couple of points I would like to make on the district plan. I understand that we are now very close to having, in September, an agreed land supply for Horsham District Council. Now, if we get this, it then brings in another perspective to what can and cannot happen. At the moment, without the district plan, we are very open to any developer doing what, wherever. The slight downside to it is that in agreeing to this, in the last couple of weeks, we've been told that we have to build 800 houses in the district a year, and that's up to 750. So, you know, that you can understand then what the pressures are on the district council to supply housing. The next question is on the neighbourhood plan, and I'm afraid to say that as the plan is currently in the embryo plan, that the application which is now being consulted on, the officers do have serious doubts on this plan as it is drawn up at the moment. So it could well be that we will have to reconsider the neighbourhood plan. And that they are the main things I want to say. But I do think that the fact that we are moving towards getting the land supply agreed is going to be an important part of what we can do in the future.
Thank you, John. Tom, do you have anything you wish to add? No further ones?
Yeah. Okay, I don't know which way you're getting around.
How was he addressing the developer?
I think I can take the issue with what John said. And the fact that of people who are questioning. We've got no idea what that may be. We've got no idea whether or not it will develop into that. So I think,
Sorry, I didn't hear which Sam.
Oh, no,
Sorry.
Dr. Cochrane,
Sorry, I'm struggling.
Sorry, Dennis, would you speak up so we can hear?
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Sorry, John was saying that the
Thank
people
you.
at the district council level saying that there may be issues with the plan. I think that's premature because the plan will go to them at some point. So it's not for them, I don't think, to comment at this stage. They do it as part of the due process. So I just want to make that point. Are we at this stage, Mr. Chairman, going to take a view around the table?
Well, I mean, I think everyone has obviously had their say. I made a few notes during the public session and just had a couple of extra bullet points to mention. There was a lot of talk about flooding concern. There was a lot of talk about flooding concern and the impact the environment would have. I think it's, we get this a lot when applications come forward and dealing with the flooding issues such as they are. I mean, that the site is in a non-flood risk zone, so what we're talking about is potential for surface water flooding, and effectively, as far as the planning decision is concerned, whilst there might be conditions to deal with that, it's effectively a technical solution in terms of how you deal with surface water. And the rules, in my own experience in the industry, are very onerous now. You can't allow more water to be shed off a site than would be now. And very little, because it's a greenfield site, very little water in terms of any assessment would run. So that's that. The other thing was really to do with, again, the neighbourhood plan and the district plan, which you've talked about. And I just reiterate what I've already said about that. We know it's a moving feast, and from, as I say, talking to the strategic side of the planning department, rather than the case officer about at the status of our neighbourhood plan, officially, they're not supposed to give it any weight, but it's very much a moving thing. And I just want to reassure members of the public, as I've said before at the beginning when I introduced this application, if the neighbourhood plan consultation does successfully support the draft pre-submission one, the Parish Council are going to do the damnedest to get that evidence to Horsham District Council. It's in our own interest to do that, and it will influence the final decision if we can get it to them in time. And there's every chance we will be able to do that. And equally with the emerging plan, I really can't speak for that. I work in the wider field of planning in other local authorities as well as Horsham, and the feedback I'm getting from planning consultants is that it could take longer than Horsham expect to get that one put to bed. But who knows, if it does happen as Horsham expect, then again that will turn this on its head. And I've written to Horsham's case officer, as I said before, to make sure that we can get more information to them at a later stage, whatever the outcome of this particular discussion is this evening. We are trying to make sure that we can keep on appraising Horsham's case officer with more information, as it becomes available to us. But we have to go on what's available to us now, rather than speculating. And equally, people have said this might have a domino effect and that sort of thing. I mean, we have to concentrate, in my view, on this application as it stands.
Speculation is not part of this decision.
Well, if we made every decision on speculation, we wouldn't get it right. So, what's the overarching feeling amongst us here?
Well, I'd like to speak.
Please do.
If I may. Let me make it clear for the benefit of the people here that I am totally objective. I have no access to grind, and I've always had the best interests of the village at heart. I spent 20 years on the Parish Council, 12 years on the District Council, 8 of which I was chairman of planning for Area South. So I do have a good idea of what I'm talking about. we have to build in West Chiltington to meet the needs that we have as expressed in the village survey. That calls for 32 social houses. I sat on the neighbourhood planning committee, and my aim was just to build 32 social houses. I didn't want to know about any market price houses, because the market price houses that we have been promoting over the last 6 or 7 years have in a way backfired. It's become impossible, as far as I can see, with land prices such as they are, to build affordable, and that's a very difficult word to use, affordable houses for people to downsize into. Because land prices are so high, we finish up with £600,000 and £700,000 houses, which are not really what we had in mind when we promoted the 2 sites at Bracklins and the one in Nightingale Lane. So my intention on the Parish Council and the Neighbourhood Planning Committee was to get 32 houses into our neighbourhood plan. We've got 14 or 15 on an assumption that the Steel Close site will come through, so we needed another 15. And my plan A was to find another social housing site that would take 15 houses, and it's not possible. Nobody's prepared to sell their land. We're very lucky to get Mervyn Webb, who has been prepared to sell his land for social housing. You can't find anybody else who will sell their land for social housing. So the only way we can, in fact, meet the need of social housing is to build market price housing, because that's the only way we can do it. And this one gives us 8, is it? Which means we need 2 sites like this one to get our other 16 houses in West Chiltington. And that's the sort of thing that we are facing. You may not like it. I've spent all my life on the council trying to stop house building in West Chiltington. To some extent I succeeded, and to some extent I couldn't because of government regulations and the local plan stipulations. So we did get a number of houses which I regretted.
How many
I'm sorry, you have to be quiet. You have to be quiet.
Sorry, please.
I have to be realistic now. We have, as far as I'm concerned, if we're going to get a neighbourhood plan accepted into the local plan, and without that the neighbourhood plan would be meaningless, Horsham are going to expect us to fulfil our obligations to the surveys that we carry out. And that means we need 2 housing sites, not 1, in West Chiltington eventually, within the next 15 years. I'm not here to win a popularity contest, and I don't suppose that's welcome news to any of you. But you have to face facts, and if you can't face facts, well, tough, because that's the way the cookie will crumble, whether we like it or not. And I don't like it any more than you do. If I could say no to open out a new house in West Chiltington other than a social house, I would be absolutely delighted. But I've got to be objective, real and realistic, and the best interests of the village are to produce at least a neighbourhood plan that is going to be accepted by Horsham and that makes proper provision for the social houses. And that's it, as far as I'm concerned. That's what will get my vote, I'm afraid, because I don't have any other choice.
Fran, do you want to say more in summary?
Well, I thought it was quite interesting how the applicant only spoke about technicalities and was rather venomous towards Horsham District Council and didn't try and sell the development to us. We have no idea how much the houses would be, what they would be like, or anything. There's nothing at all that would make us change our minds about whether we would actually, in the end, it might not be so bad, because that's what I've always thought they were supposed to do. But instead of which we have just heard a tirade against Horsham District Council and how horrible they were. And apart from that, I don't really care about the neighbourhood plan and all the other things. I just don't want to see large-scale, high-density development in our village.
Okay. Tom, do you have a view? Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else to add, Dennis?
Yeah. We are still in a catch-22. We're almost in the same position as we were last November in terms of the Horsham plan being settled and nor was our neighbourhood plan. And so in terms of, for us, that decision being premature, that was still the case, I think. Now we may or may not agree with what the content is of the neighbourhood plan and as and how we got to where we are. But it has been through a democratic process, and I think it's only fair that we actually stay with that. So my view is that I would object to this, but I would like to put a rider on the objections, so when it goes to Horsham, that if they be so minded as to look favourably on this application, then they need to bear the neighbourhood plan in mind, because we're not looking for a development site of more than 15 anywhere in the parish, and that is fundamental to our neighbourhood plan. Now, whether or not the applicant can actually sort of come down to 15 or not, I don't know, but that is a reasonable question to ask.
Okay, well I'm not going to go over old ground a lot more. I've made my views clear about the neighbourhood plan and its limited status, etc. and so forth. I think we should have a motion, or maybe a series of motions upon which you can vote. You've made a proposition that you would object to it. So I'm going to start there by offering a motion to object to this on the grounds of prematurity, and
But with this rider in, should Horsham be inclined to do it faithfully?
but they limit the development to 15
Limited
years.
development.
Okay. So that's a motion being proposed. I'm happy to go around the table and ask if that is supported. I know that this has been argued over a lot. I've been advised by my clerk that prematurity would not be sufficient grounds for refusal, and you know, I'm keen that we do, whatever motion we pass, we do have some legitimate grounds to refuse it on. So we've obviously got the grounds upon which it was refused the first time. I don't know what else you've got to...
We've had a number of suggestions for obviously from the public that you could take on up there. You've got to base it on planning grounds. So you've got to come up with policies and or general objections that will justify your objection if you want it to be taken.
I think if we're going to have a vote on whether we should object to it, it's really based on the planning grounds of being inconsistent with the current core strategies and the current development policies, haven't we, really?
Well, it's basically the same objection
As we had previously.
Yeah.
So,
No
are you
change.
happy we have a vote on that basis initially, even if that's not carried, we can go on and have other votes and other proposals? Okay. So, all those in favour of objecting to this application?
So in favour of objecting?
Objecting to it on the grounds that have been mentioned.
So everyone would like to object?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So that's two. Those against objecting to it?
What's the price?
I've seen enough.
That's not carried, so we need to have another proposal.
Can I just say
Which
that as a parish council, yes,
Disgrace.
so you start round this table. You start round. Listen. You sat round this table and you all rejected.
You must close the meeting.
How on earth? I'm sorry. No. How on earth? Can we have confidence in a parish council that does one thing and then does another.
Look, if you want to hear what's being said so that you can make your own independent representation, which you're obviously at liberty to do, and I recommend that you do it, direct to Horsham District Council. We are not the determining body here. We are just somebody who is officing a...
May I propose to dissolve all of this out by actually returning a no decision?
We could do that. Okay, so if you want to stay and listen instead of interrupting, you're welcome to do so. Otherwise,
we're not interrupting, it's our interest, we live here.
We have a job to do.
Well,
okay?
I respect that. But then you've got to allow us to have our say because we live in this village. It affects us. You cannot just say you want to
that. We have done that. We followed the procedures that are laid down for us, and that's as far as I'm able to take it. So
I have asked about registrable interests. I would like to know how independent everybody is on this parish council.
Well, you'll have to take that up outside of the meeting. It's
not allowed to tell.
Discussion as part of this meeting, okay? I'm going to propose that we don't object on the basis.
Hold on a minute. Guys, I'm on your side. Listen a minute. We need to listen to these people to find out what they actually say. If we all walk out, we won't know what they've decided. So give them 2 minutes to take a vote on something.
Please, I'm making a motion that we don't object. This is not support for the scheme. This is just a neutral non-objection, which is to say that if Horsham are mindful to approve it, we secure the conditions that would benefit this community in terms of full social housing provision on the site, as much of a financial contribution through Section 106 for our community projects, and I've been advised by Helen Lowe to list out all the elements of the youth facility, scout hut, etc. and so forth, so that if any monies do come forward, we can spread them as much as we can first.
This is a bribe.
I will welcome any other.
What are the numbers?
In terms of numbers, I mean, we can certainly say we'd like the development in detail to be restricted to 15 properties as a condition.
Which is what you wanted all the way from 2 years ago.
Is this a number game?
Reject what's in front.
You should refer it to the whole parish council.
Well, that's what was offered before, and that was...
Please let us finish.
What you need is to make a proposal that's clear, second.
You might be better at phrasing.
I've got that you raised no objection, and that you would seek to secure conditions of full social housing, a Section 106 contribution, which would be
in supporting youth facilities, including the Scouts, before and after school, preschool,
Street lighting, thank you very much.
and youth facilities.
okay, and that you would seek a reduction in numbers.
See reduction in numbers to 15.
Why not 6, which was in line with the original Horsham one?
You need a second.
Proposal, second.
Sorry.
I don't know what the motion is, I'm lost.
It's a proposal not to object on, and also for conditions. Yes,
It would be
One or two
objection to securing conditions of full social housing, a Section 106 contribution towards youth facilities, which would include Scout creamed after school and youth facilities.
Dirty.
And it would seek a reduction in numbers to a maximum of 15. This is madness. It's been proposed and seconded. Where will this
come from?
We're doing this on the basis.
Robert's just made it up like he normally does.
Sorry, Fran. I'm proposing a motion because we haven't agreed to object to it.
We haven't discussed where any money would go to. We haven't discussed it. And I'm also going to suggest that there's so few of us here to vote
Yes.
that it's come down to silly numbers that maybe we should refer it to full parish council so we have a better quantity of numbers.
We want full representation.
Have we got
4 people have voted.
Yeah, 4 people for the whole village.
For the whole village. The whole village, 4 people.
We'd like to go to full parish council then as the
Keep on knocking.
The parish council has delegated matters to a committee of 9 people.
Where are
If
they?
Where's
the 9? Excuse me, you said there were no apologies. Where is Mr. Kenzie? Where is Mr. Kenzie?
Order, please listen
Well,
to what our clerk has got to say. There are 9 people on this committee.
There's-
1 is absent and 2 are have declared interest, so can't vote. So
But there
the rest of
was,
us
sorry,
don't
excuse
vote.
me, there was no apology for absence.
There doesn't need to be
It
an
doesn't need to
apology
be.
for absence.
He isn't here. That's all. That's all we'll
I can
record.
only communicate apologies that have been communicated to me
Right.
that haven't been. And
You should ask for substitution in that circumstance.
He has to ask for a substitution, please.
Can you stop banging that hammer? It's very
If you don't want me
irritating.
to bang the hammer, you'll have to be quiet.
Well, somebody needs to say something.
We're trying to come to a conclusion about this next motion. Fran, if you want to add other things to which money should
Well,
go to,
we haven't
then
really had
please.
time to discuss it. I'm just going to simply say yes.
Why for votes?
Well, this is the time
This is the time to discuss
to
it.
do
Well,
that.
I'm objecting to it. I don't like the idea of, yes, we'll have it if he gives money. I don't like that. We should vote on the development, not the
It's a
conditions
statute.
of having a development. So it's not a big wall next to you, that the fact that you've got a youth club isn't really going to help. big
I
numbers.
understand, Fran, but the reality is that whether we say what we want this money to go towards or not, Horsham District Council will still apply Section 106. This is our opportunity to get it steered to places where we would ideally like it to go. That's all it is. There's no additional money coming forward. There's no bribe, as people have suggested. It's simply the way
Sorry,
it works.
you did have a discussion with Mr. Stevens about £30,000 I seem to have overheard you talking about at the village show.
And it's come to nothing, so...
But there was no bribe.
No.
I can't say